Wait, how did you even? How?
Here's my Ocarina of Time hot take.
Well, actually.
Oh, the Spirit Temple is epic, but I never
mean,
got
you know
around
what
to
they
playing
say.
it.
So, we've got big news tonight. Bobby over here has beat Ocarina of Time for the first time. And do you want me to give
correct.
your age?
Yeah, I'm in my late 20s now.
Yeah, we'll say late 20s.
Mid to late 20s.
So, I mean, you know, Ocarina of Time, I mean, for me, I got it in the GameCube Collector's Edition. When they were...
Never had a N64. Let me tell you why it's taking me this long to beat it. I grew up with a SNES, and then the next console I got was an Xbox 360 when I was in high school. So I went from SNES to Xbox 360. The only other gaming systems I had all the handhelds. So I played Game Boy, and then Game Boy Advance SP, and then DS, and then I had a DSi, and then I had a 3DS XL. But I never got around to playing it.
My life be like.
That is what they say.
Thank you.
So I never got around to playing it, and then finally I did. Play it. Yeah. So I have now beaten.
Yeah.
Ocarina of Time. 3D. I played the 3DS version of it. I've heard it's a decent port. And listen, here's my Ocarina of Time hot take. Phantom Hourglass might be better. And I know that's a an outrageous thing to say, but having played Ocarina of Time on a Nintendo DS, I think just the console, people just like that it was on a console. Like if you were able to put Phantom Hourglass on a console, not that you can, but if you were able, like maybe Wii U, right? Like I think it would be better. People would be like, this is way better than Ocarina of Time. It's an epic game.
I think that's not only a hot take, but I think it's objectively a bad one. But we'll get to the Phantom Hourglass in a minute. So just to reiterate, you're in your late 20s. You know, you and I are about the same age. The game came out, you know, in our lifetimes. Of course, I was too young to play it when it came out. It came with my GameCube. I got the collector's edition with my GameCube, which included Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, the first two games, and a demo of The Wind Waker. And my dad used to have to read all the dialogue to me, because I started playing it before I could read, and he would make up like these backstories for the characters.
Jesus, you played video games very young.
I did. So, you know, I mean, the first time I played it was 20 years ago now. But, so you're approaching this from someone who was around the right, you know, age to have experienced it when it was relatively new, and you didn't. So, focusing on Ocarina of Time, what did you think about it?
I mean, I thought it was very good. I thought it was very fun. There's a lot of moments in it where I said, I kept thinking, like, is this the best Zelda game ever? And there were a bunch of moments where as soon as I forgot that I was thinking about that, I said, this game is a lot of fun. This is a very good game. So I think if you stop trying to think whether or not it's the best game, it's a very fun game. It's got a lot of cool elements. There's a lot of cool dungeons. There's a lot of frustrating moments that are like, oh, okay. But it's pretty good. I can see if you're a kid, it's a lot more difficult than me playing it.
Scary too.
There were a lot of moments where it's like, okay, this is not that difficult. And then there are a lot of moments where I'm like, I have literally no concept of what I'm supposed to do. Is the Sheikah, like, is the hint system in the original game?
No, I don't believe so. I never finished the 3D port, but there are the what do they call them? The Gossip Stones. But they function a little bit differently.
Do they not tell the time?
They tell the time, but do the Gossip Stones in that game, is that where you're getting the hints from?
No, the Gossip Stones only tell the time.
Okay.
You blink them and all they say is, it is such and such a clock.
Okay.
But there's like the Sheikah Stone. There's one like outside Link's house in the forest. and then there's one in the Temple of Time, and then those will give you like visions of the future, like little hints.
Oh no.
Okay, I didn't think that was part of the original game. There were a couple of times where it's like I really needed that. There's like a couple of times where it's just like I have no idea what the fuck I'm supposed to be doing. Like, what am I supposed to be doing here? That there seemed like there was no way, like they didn't really give you much of a hint. Which maybe if it's just like your only game, and you're playing it and you're young and you're like you just want to experience it, that's great. But when you're like trying to just get through the whole game relatively quickly, I was just like trying to just play it because I wanted to get through it. It was a little annoying. I also didn't do many of the side quests. I got one mask. I did one mask, and I got the blue pocket cuckoo, but I didn't know what the hell to use it for, so I didn't do anything else with it.
Well, if you talk to Anju, or I think in that game she's just called the Cuckoo Lady.
Yeah.
But if you talk to her, I think she says you needed to give it to her brother in the Lost Woods. And it's worth doing because, without spoiling it, you get a massive item that's definitely worth it.
Oh, you get another item? Oh. Well, you don't need to do it because I didn't do it and I was able to beat the game.
Well, you want me to tell you what it is?
Sure, I'm probably not going to play it again, yeah.
Going to be surprised by it. It's called the Big Goron Sword. And it gives you a replacement
that's
to
how
the
you get the
Master
third sword. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, because I saw there's a spot in the thing, there's like a third sword. I was like, I wonder what this is.
Yeah, a staple of the Zelda series has always been trading side quests, and that was this game's version. It goes in a lot of different directions. And once you give the blue cuckoo, I think it's a little more explicit in telling you where to go. It's like, oh, go tell my mom or my grandma at the potion shop that I need this, and then she gives it back, and then, a lot of back and forth, but it typically tells you where to go. But at the end of it, you end up getting the Big Goron Sword.
So this is where the Phantom Hourglass, they had a whole economy. It was like shops that you'd buy and sell things at.
So what'd you think of the temples in Ocarina of Time?
Let's see. Let me look through let me go to the wiki so I don't forget any of the temples, because I thought they were great. I thought the only one that I didn't like was.
So I'm gonna guess the temple you don't like was the water temple.
Let's see. So the Temple of Light. I don't remember the Temple of Light.
Temple of Light is not in the game. It was cut and replaced with just the Temple of Time. You get the medallion for free.
So, Forest Temple. Forest Temple was good. I liked the Forest Temple a lot. That was cool. That had a really cool vibe.
It reminds me, I totally forgot to get the live stuff set up. So you like the Forest Temple?
The Fire Temple I liked too. The Fire Temple was cool. I didn't get stuck that much on the Fire Temple. There was one I really didn't like. Maybe it was the Water. The Water Temple.
Well, that's typically the one people don't like.
I did the Water Temple without the tunic, so that took me forever because I had to like keep coming up for air.
Wait, how did you even? How?
You just have to have a lot of hearts. You get a minute and 28 seconds.
No, but how did you not get it?
Because I forgot to go unthaw the king.
Interesting.
Shadow Temple was really cool. The Shadow Temple was really cool. That's the one where you have to use the fancy thing. Which one I'm trying to think of the one I didn't like.
Was it the Spirit Temple?
No, the Spirit Temple wasn't bad. Spirit Temple was cool. Temple of Time.
Well, that's not an actual temple.
What's the order you do the temples in?
I'll tell you everything in order. First one is the Great Deku Tree, followed by...
That was cool. That was fine. That was easy. I mean, it was simple. Yep.
Okay, followed by Dodongo's Cavern. Jabu Jabu's
Dodongo's
Belly.
Cavern wasn't bad. I hated Jabu Jabu's Belly.
Is that the one you're thinking of?
No, there's definitely a temple. I did not like Jabu Jabu's Belly. That was very annoying.
Well, could it be beneath the well? That's where you go back and you go inside the well.
No, I didn't mind bottom of the well. Maybe it was the Forest Temple. There were a couple of points of the Forest Temple that I was like, oh, it took me a while to figure it out.
Yeah, there's some spots where it's a little obtuse, right? Because I think we talked about it before. There's like that one key that's in the main room.
Maybe it was just a water temple I didn't like, but it had a cool mechanic.
Yeah.
Or the Shadow or the Spirit Temple, one of those two I didn't like. Spirit Temple's in the Desert Colossus.
Yeah, you remember? It's the one where, as you get up to it, there's the giant, like, statue of their god.
Oh, the Spirit Temple is epic! I love the Spirit Temple.
Good, okay.
That was the one where you actually have to go back and forth in time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. That was really cool.
Was that your favorite one?
Maybe the Shadow Temple I didn't like, but I really liked Bottom of the Well. I think that's what it is. I liked Bottom of the Well, but the Shadow Temple was alright.
Shadow Temple scared me as a kid. That and Beneath the Well. I mean, the Dead Hand, the mini boss. You couldn't get away with that in a rated E game anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I remember screaming the first time I saw it, and then you have to fight it twice.
Yeah, maybe there aren't that many bad temples. Maybe there wasn't a temple I didn't like. The Fire Temple I didn't mind. As much as you say you hate the Fire Temple, I didn't mind that one.
I don't hate it. I liked it as a kid. It's just the one that, like, on subsequent playthroughs, I care for it the least, probably.
I think...
Because the Water Temple at least makes up in aesthetic.
Yeah, I don't know. It just, maybe it's not so much the temples as it was the bosses. I didn't like a lot of the bosses. They were kind of mid. Like the Spirit Temple boss, the two witches.
Yes, you didn't like that one?
It was too easy to understand. Like so some of them it's like some of them it took me too long to figure out what the trick was.
Yeah.
And some of them, the trick was too easy. The problem is, once you figure out the trick, it's over. Like, that's it. You just do the same motion 5 times, then they die. And the difficulty is literally just figuring out what the trick is. And by the time you figure out what the trick is, like, you've already died once. It's like, and then you're going to come back with full health. So, to me, that kind of... Like with Ganon, like Ganondorf. Ganon was pretty good. Ganon didn't have it, but Ganondorf, like I died the first time playing Ganondorf because I forgot that you have to like what the trick was. Fully die the first time, come back with brand new stuff the second time. Able to kill Ganondorf like literally so easily. Because it was just like insanely easy because I just knew the trick and I knew how to avoid it and I knew how to not die. And it was too easy in my mind for that. Ganon took me three times to beat him.
Well, if I can add a counterpoint real quick to Ganondorf, I think the difficulty with him isn't so much the strategy as it is timing the... It's a thing that recurs. They call it Dead Man's Volley, where you're swinging the ball back and forth. The timing on that is, I think, the real
but once
challenge.
you get the timing down, it's easy.
Sort of. I mean, it increason.
Yeah, but there's... I mean, the hitbox, like, you can get the timing down pretty easily. Ganon was tricky just because I kept running out of arrows, and then it took me a while to realize, oh, I can also use the hook shot. But I mean, other than that, it's... I don't know. The bosses were kind of mid. There's a lot of stuff that was very... meticulous, and kind of felt like it was filler. Like it took longer than it needed to, and it was like, oh, I gotta keep putzing with this.
So
that that I didn't like.
What'd you think about? We'll just say it this way. Across time and even to this day, although I think you see a little bit of controversy in some lists, like IGN did a top 100 games of all time list, I think in like 2021 or 2019, something like that. And what was traditionally the #1 spot, Ocarina of Time, was replaced with Breath of the Wild. So Breath of the Wild actually, another Zelda game, supplanted Ocarina of Time is IGN's best game ever. But historically,
yeah.
and still with some lists, you see Ocarina of Time listed as being the best game ever. Do you think it deserves that reputation?
No, I think a lot
Why
of
not?
that is nostalgia. I think a lot of it is nostalgia, and maybe this is why I say Phantom Hourglass is better, because to me that was my childhood growing up Zelda game, like the one that really impacted me, and I
Right.
spent a lot of time on. And maybe Ocarina of Time, I mean, if you played it back in the day, your first playthrough, and you're always going to be bound by your first playthrough, the context of your first playthrough. And you can say, oh, I played it again, but you're always going to think about your first playthrough.
Well, you're a computer guy.
In the context of that, I can see how you think it's such a big open world. I mean, the Hyrule isn't that big in Ocarina of Time.
I'm
Like,
not gonna
yeah,
lie. There are some ways where it almost feels, and I know this isn't true, but it almost feels bigger than Breath of the Wild's Hyrule because you
Absolutely
have
not.
more temples and things to
Absolutely
interact
not.
with. It feels, and it's because you have separate zones. Like think about you go out of the Kokiri Forest and you were to first thing, and this is what I did, is instead of going into the Hyrule Castle Town, you beeline it for the Gerudo Valley, and you see that massive waterfall, and you're just going in for the first time, and then you fall down into the waterfall, and you end up at Lake Hylia. To me, that rings as being way bigger than going from zone to zone in Breath of the Wild's Hyrule, just because of how they lead you. Because it's not actually open world, right? It's trying to linearly lead you from one place to another while making you think it's bigger than it is.
Yeah,
And I think
but
it works.
I strongly disagree. Now, I don't know
Yeah.
if the 3DS version has shrunk the world down, and if that's the case, then maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
But
No, I mean, I think you're probably right.
it takes like a minute to walk across the Hyrule. Like the main thing, Hyrule Garden or Field or whatever, takes like a minute.
Hyrule
Takes like
Garden.
maybe another minute to get to the Spirit Temple, and you have the desert and stuff, which was cool. But that's kind of a scripted thing along.
Yeah.
Where the other day I picked up Breath of the Wild because that's the next game I'm going to try and beat. I got to beat Breath of the Wild before I finish before Tears of the Kingdom comes out. I played Breath of the Wild. Here, open up the map real quick.
Here we go.
So I went from the upper right. I can't. You're fucking.
Eldon or Akala?
Yes, yeah, Akala. Your face cam's in the way.
Oh, yeah, right. Here,
So I went from Akala,
zoom it in.
like the Akala stables, on
Right here.
horseback. Yep, all the way down to yeah, from not deep Akala, but down a little bit. Down.
Well, this is where the stable
Yeah,
is.
that's the stables. Yeah, you're right. So all the way down south to Gerudo Desert, to the desert. So I went across the entire map. So from there, southwest.
Say, and you had to go all the way.
No, not. I
across
went
here.
down the other route.
Well, I mean,
but yeah,
this is
pretty
the only
much
one
that.
with
Yeah,
like an
that's-
actual route. But
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
I mean, so I went down all the way down to there. Took me a solid 15 minutes, and it felt like I was going into different zones because Akala was there's a thunderstorm happening in Akala, so I had to unequip all of my metal shit going on because I was going to get zapped by lightning. And then you get to the middle bit, like the Hyrule Field area, and there's all the guardians that I had to like avoid getting shot by a guardian, and then you get down to the desert and it's like a completely different feel there. And the whole time, here's the big thing. Now I don't know, maybe they got rid of this in the 3DS version, but in the N64 version, are there NPCs that like exist in the Hyrule Field? Not enemies, but like non-violent NPCs.
There's one. There is the running man, who later became known as the postman. You've probably seen him if you played.
Oh yeah, the
Smash Bros.
postman.
Or something like that. Yeah.
Well, the postman's also in Minish Cap.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yep.
But that's it. It's just the postman.
Yeah. I think it's just him.
Yeah. So
Sorry,
that's.
I'm doing MLG strats over here.
Yeah. That's very different from Breath of the Wild. That whole 15 minutes where I'm traversing this land, first of all, I pass a gazillion enemies, right? And I'm constantly getting the battle music. But the other thing I pass are just tons of NPCs that are also traveling to different areas, and they're all also reacting to the environment in a similar way. Like, it's raining, it's pouring rain, so they're all also like scurrying around, like trying to like, you know, get out of the rain, and like it's affecting them. And then when I'm in the fields and there's like enemies, they're also like, you know, worried about the enemies and stuff. And it felt a lot more alive. And the other thing, it felt a lot more than in Ocarina of Time, especially when, you know, it's one thing in the early game, but once you get to after the adult Link era, right, like the 7,
Yeah.
you know, 70, it did not feel as nearly as post-apocalyptic as Breath of the Wild does. As the NPCs of Breath of the Wild make it feel like you are in this fallen society.
Well, yeah, but
Hyrule
Ocarina
has
of Time's
collapsed.
not supposed to be as apocalyptic.
Yeah, but I mean, it kind of is. I mean, the Hyrule Castle completely collapses in on itself, and
Oh, well, yeah, okay, I see what you mean.
Ganondorf, you know, everyone has to go to the Kakariko village, and they're all like held up there, and it's like, you know, it's a very different feel. Like in Breath of the Wild, you look at the way the NPCs react and the way the NPCs are, and it feels like this is they are in a void, in a power void. How there is like, you know, a malignant force is affecting them, and their the society they grew up with and the safety and security they grew up with is gone. So you have merchants that act differently.
Well, actually, if you didn't know, the game takes place 100 years after, and so all the NPCs, unless you're like a Zora, maybe the Rito, none of them were actually alive when Hyrule
Okay, but still, it's.
I'm just saying.
You're 2 lifetimes then. Like their parents would have been alive, and the point is, it
100 years
feels
ago,
different.
probably not. It would be like their parents, their grandparents, great-parents, great-grandparents. I don't know. One of those.
The point is, it feels Breath of the Wild feels a lot more alive.
Uh-huh.
And so I definitely think Breath of the Wild's a better game.